Letters from Mars, Letters from Mars, Letters from Mars podcast. What is up? Let's get into this tea hunting. Yes.
Hello, loves. My name is Junie.Marz, and this is Letters from Mars, a podcast all about positivity, energy, and creativity, all created to help you live your best life and you feel your best. Full of inspiration, ideas, and innovation, this podcast was made for you. Now let's get into it, honey. I send you so many blessings this morning. Let's get pumped. I woke up early. I wrote in my journal. I follow my morning routine. I've been reading this book, which is Tony Robbins' Money Master the Game. And recently I started integrating reading this book, High Performance Habits by Brendon Burchard. My goal is to read each of the books for about 30 minutes in the morning. So dedicate an hour solid to reading. Always be thinking about how to better improve your life, your routines, how to maximize your time. And I used to use the victim mindset, the victim mentality. All this stuff is happening to me and blah, blah, blah. And I had to have a wake up call and really realize everything starts with me. Use this day to fuel yourself, to springboard yourself into where you want to go this month. Write out goals for yourself. Take 5 minutes. It all starts with you taking accountability and responsibility for yourself, for your life, because this is your life and no one else is in charge of it but you. You're my bad habit, baby, you're taking my soul down to the level. Can't escape the way you got me locked up, baby. I gotta break from you, break from you, break from you. What is up, everybody? Welcome to the 5th episode of Letters from Mars. I'm your host, Junie.Marz. And that is, or was, one of my favorite songs from one of my favorite all-time. I was obsessed with him. One of my favorite all-time singers, Maxwell. I love Maxwell. And that song that I was singing is called Bad Habit. And if you remember in the video, Bad Habit, Kerry Washington stars. So the concept of that song, Bad Habit, is all about someone, Maxwell, who is not able to stop cheating and not able to break the habit of continuing to have an affair with his mistress, right? And he says that she, the mistress, is his bad habit. And while the subject of this podcast isn't that necessarily the topic of this podcast, is how to create a habit and stick to it. And this song is fitting because sometimes in order for us to create new, healthy, happy, living our best life kind of habits for ourselves, we have to shed old habits, break ties with old customs and old beliefs so that we can make room, honey, for new growth that comes from new habits. Is this easy? No. It's really not. In order to create new habits, you have to create a new mindset. You have to create a new set of alarms maybe on your phone so you can wake up earlier. You know what I mean? But creating new habits has been something that has been really monumental, keystone in my life. And not just creating new habits, but really sticking to them solidly and making them the fundamental parts of my everyday so that they just become part of my life. And now I don't really even think about them. And sometimes, we have these habits that we don't even realize that we have. I was watching this interview on London Real of the author of this book called Atomic Habits. And it's a really interesting book. I have not read it yet, but it's definitely on my reading list, Atomic Habits. And he was talking about the fact that we essentially develop habits because of the way that things are set up in our lives. And he gave an example of flossing, right? When you think about flossing your teeth and brushing your teeth, generally you do them together, right? You floss your teeth or first and then brush your teeth, or brush your teeth first and then floss. People have their different systems. But generally you think of them as things you do together. And he was saying that in his life, he would always brush his teeth, but he was forgetting to floss. And he realized that the reason that he was forgetting to floss was because his floss and his toothbrush were in totally different places. He put his floss in a drawer that was underneath the sink. And because it was in a drawer that was not next to his toothbrush, he would forget to go into that drawer and floss, right? So what did he do? He started taking the floss out and putting his toothbrush and his floss side by side so that when he thought about one, he thought about the other. Habits, honey. He probably still had to remind himself, right, to floss when he put his toothbrush down. But because he set it up in the way that he set it up, it was easier for him to create this new habit of flossing because of his organization, right? And when we think about even things in our apartment, sometimes the way that we have our apartment set up makes it harder for us to make new habits that we say we want to create. Like, if your couch directly faces the television, the activity that is set up in that situation is for you to watch television, right? Not read a book, watch the television because of the direction of where the couch is facing. But imagine if you face the couch towards the bookshelf. Then could you start reading more if that was something that you wanted to create a new habit of? Of course! Would it be easy and fast and would your brain be used to doing that? No. Of course you might still be gravitated towards grabbing the remote. But consider that, It's like in feng shui, right? There's a specific way that you set up your apartment, your room, your house, your space in order to achieve peace and clarity and balance. You can do that in your apartment, in your house, in your space to create new habits as well. So, on this fifth shining, bright, brilliant episode of Letters from Mars, and you know, I always share my own experiences with you in the form of an open letter that I speak about, that I've written about each topic. And for this topic of how to create a habit and stick to it, I'm going to be sharing my own experiences, honey, with creating habits. But before we get into this week's open letter, I have an announcement, and I'm so excited about it. I want to create conversation in this podcast. I want to create community in this podcast. And the reason that I called this podcast Letters from Mars is because I want to make this a letter exchange, right? One of my favorite things growing up was having a pen pal. So growing up, I was in a dual immersion program or a bilingual program where we learned one day in English and one day in Spanish. And I was in this program from kindergarten all the way until 5th grade. So I would say, fluent in conversational Spanish now. I was very fluent as a child, but you know, when you don't practice, anything can fade, right? If you don't create the habit of practicing, anything can fade, right? Unfortunately. But it's definitely something that I am reminding myself to practice regularly. But anyway, in my class, we had the opportunity, I think it was like 1st or 2nd grade, to have pen pals. And we had pen pals from Barcelona, Spain. And it was like the best thing in my life because we would write letters as a class and then mail them off. And then we would receive letters from a class that was our same age in Spain. And I just thought that was the coolest thing because I was sharing my experiences with my pen pal and they would write back to me and share their experiences. I remember my pen pal, I don't remember her name. I feel like it started with an M. I wonder if my mom still has my letters because she, you know, she keeps things like that. But I remember my pen pal, she would talk about football, you know, soccer, and she drew pictures in her letters. And it was just such a genuine way to connect. And so on this podcast, I really want us to be able to connect. So I would like to create a segment called Listener Letters. And the hashtag I'm going to be using for this segment is Mars Pen Pals. Right? MarzPenPals. Mars Pen Pals. So if you want to send me a letter, you can do so by sending me an email at Gmail. And my Gmail email is Junie.Marz at gmail.com. And I'll link that in the description. Or if you're listening to this on Anchor, awesome, because Anchor has
the option of allowing you to leave me a voice message. So you can leave me a voice message and respond or read out loud the letter that you wrote in response to this podcast, because I love hearing your voices. Or if you're into it, you can make a video. Yes, I would love that. You can make a video, on Instagram, on your stories, and you can tag me, and you can put the hashtag Mars Pen Pals, and then I can also connect with you that way. And of course, you can also always DM me and write me through DM, and I'll get your message that way. And if you have other ideas on how to connect, let me know. I'm always interested in new forms of technology. But this week, I received my first listener letter in my DMs from at Jonesy Wine. And Jonesy Wine writes, "Hey, Junie.Marz. How are you? Just wanted to say your latest pod was super inspiring and healing to me. Bae and I are going through a period of restructuring our relationship and cleansing unhealthy habits and energy. We both had problematic upbringings and poor relationship models, and have dealt with issues of codependency, lack of boundaries, etc. We are taking the time and space to truly love and heal ourselves in order to have a more fulfilling and healthier relationship. Thank you so much for your wisdom and love energy. We'll definitely check out the books you recommended." First of all, I would like to say thank you so much for submitting and taking the time to write that beautifully written, vulnerable letter. I really commend all of you who share your stories, because it's not easy, right? To share what you're going through. But I really think what's not easy for us is the most important thing that we can do. Sometimes you think people don't want to hear your story, or you think, oh, everybody goes through this. No! The fact is, while people may be experiencing things that you're going through, nobody can tell your story like you can tell your story. So you have to share your story, honey. And you never know who you're inspiring by sharing your story, by speaking your truth. So when I read this letter, I was so impressed and inspired by the maturity that was expressed between the two people in this partnership. Taking breaks and agreeing mutually, because you respect each other, to take a break so that you can heal, so that you can be your best self, so that you can really start to learn how to live your best life. That is the biggest and the greatest and the most wonderful, the most fabulous act of love. A lot of us think about love in terms of passion. and, how steamy it is and how physical it is, but there's so much more. There's so many deeper levels, and I was really inspired by this letter. So what I want to know from you all as listeners is, have you had the experience of taking a mutual break with your partner, the person you're dating, the person you're in a relationship with, to better heal? And what steps did you take in that process? How well did that work for you? Because healing is something we first have to do from within so that we can have healthy relationships, outside of ourselves, with others. So I'd love to learn more from you all about how you have found taking a break from a relationship that may not be working has helped you to heal. I'd love to hear more from the person who wrote this letter about the journey, about what happens after this moment. But I know in my heart that only good can come from such a caring, compassionate, love-filled decision. So if you're listening, thank you, my Mars pen pal, for kicking this listener letter segment off right, honey, with such an inspiring, vulnerable, and compassionate, open truth, open letter about your own relationship and making those challenging decisions to be good to yourself, right? To form habits that allow us to live our healthiest, happiest, best life in relationships with others and in relationships with ourselves. Because it all starts with you, honey. So without further ado, remember, I want to hear from you. Hashtag Mars Pen Pals on IG. Tag me if you do something on your story where you talk about Letters from Mars podcast, or you'd like me to share it on this podcast. Email me at Junie.Marz@gmail.com, or follow me on Instagram, Junie.Marz with a Z, and get in touch with me. I'd love to hear from you. And now, let's get in to the open letter for this week from me to you, all about my journey to create habits that stick. May this letter encourage you and inspire you. And let me know how. Let's get into it, honey. Did you know that it takes 22
days and 10,000 hours to master something. So it takes 22 days to first form a skill, right? And really hone in and master that one specific habit or skill. But in order to truly, truly, truly master that skill, it takes time. It takes you to invest over 10,000 hours. So don't get stressed out if it takes you a long time or if you're struggling to master a skill. It certainly was something that was really challenging for me. So I worked a night job, and my schedule was from 5 p.m. to 1 a.m. every single day. And this was great at first. I got to sleep in. I got to work at a time where there weren't that many customers. I got snacks. It was pretty quiet. So I got to talk to my coworkers who were all awesome. But I would get home every day at after 2 a.m. and I would wake up barely at 10 a.m. And then by the time I got ready and ate breakfast and checked my email, it was already time to go back to work again. How many people can identify with this? Yeah. This is the cycle of work that we experience every day. So how do you begin to change that cycle if you want to form new habits in your life that you're going to actually stick to? That was the question I had to ask myself as well. And the first thing I had to do is I had to make a decision that I wanted to change my life. And I had to stick to that decision no matter how intimidated I felt or no matter how, discouraged I felt. So the first thing I had to do is I had to figure out what I wanted. And what I wanted was to change my schedule. The only way I was going to be able to change my schedule at work is if I swallowed my pride and I talked to the management about it. Now, I was somebody who does not like to at all ruffle feathers or, step on anybody's toes or get in anybody's way. That's how I was taught and that's how I was trained. And that's how many of us operate through life. We don't want to cause any trouble. We just want to go along with the status quo. Well, that wasn't going to make any changes, honey. So I had to make a decision. And what I decided to do is approach management and say, you know what? I want to change my schedule. Yeah, I could worry about all the other things. I could worry about the fact that they may tell me, hey, Julia, you know what? There are other people that want to change their schedule to the morning and they have more priority over you because they've been working here longer. Okay, yeah, that's true. But once I made a decision in my mind, it didn't really matter what other factors were going to play into it. I was willing to do whatever it took to be able to accomplish that goal and stick to that decision. So once I put in my request to change my schedule, every single day after that, I would approach management, someone in management, and inquire about it. I would say, I just wanted to make sure, people have seen my request and that it was going in and that it's being processed. And, if I got one reaction from someone who said, I don't know how likely that's going to be, I said, okay. And I looked for my allies. I looked for people who were going to help me. I looked for resources. I looked for different ways, different people I could talk to be able to accomplish my decision. Sometimes that meant speaking to other coworkers about how they changed their schedules. Sometimes that meant speaking to other supervisors. Sometimes that meant speaking to the captain of my store, the manager, the head manager of my store. I was going to do whatever it took. And you know what helped me the most was having faith in here and talking to my ancestors, talking to the universe, asking the powers that be to help me to accomplish my goal. I don't know what you believe in, and whatever you believe in is awesome, but there are powers greater than we are that can really help us when we ask for it. So ask for what you want. And one day after asking and being determined every single day, my schedule changed. And I was able to start working mornings. It took maybe like a month or two for my schedule to change. But once it changed, I was able to start working a morning shift. And when I worked a morning shift, my entire life changed because I had to refocus my entire schedule. And I had all this new time that I could do something with. But what was I going to do? I wanted to change my life. I wanted to, work during the day so I could be a human being and not feel like a vampire. Wake up at a decent hour. So at that point, I was waking up at 8, walking my dog and eating breakfast with my partner so I could get to work by 10. And then this voice whispered to me and it said, write a book. I thought to myself, me, write a book. Okay, yeah, right. There's this concept called imposter syndrome. It is the queen or the king, however you want to reference it, of self-sabotage. It is where you have a grand idea that is sent to you from the universe, from the gods. And it comes to you and you think, wow, this is awesome. And then fear starts to set in and play with your head. And you say, I can never do that. I'm not capable of doing that. Yeah, right. Other people can do that. I can't write a book. I can't do that. Yeah, right. And you put it to the back of your mind and you never think about it again. That's imposter syndrome. And I have suffered from imposter syndrome way too many times. But this time, I wasn't going to let it get to me. Not this time. So I had to make another decision. And I had to figure out how, even though I didn't know what I was going to write about, how I was going to write this book. What I was going to do to make steps to write this book. A lot of it isn't about the part where you're typing and figuring out what to write. A lot of it is about getting your mindset in the frame that you're going to be able to sit down and actually do that activity. So for me, I had to start reading and figuring out what other people have done to be able to achieve what they want to achieve. And I came across this amazing book by Timothy Ferriss. And if you know who he is, amazing guy, you should research him. He wrote this book called The 4-Hour Workweek. The 4-Hour Workweek. Google it. It is this amazing book where it talks all about how he changed his life from working a regular job to working 4 hours a week on things that he really wanted to do. It really encourages you to think outside of the box and learn how you can live the life that you want to live without sacrificing all of your time working at a regular job. So I devoured that book, honey. I read that book and I was so interested in that book, and it really changed my mindset. And the first thing I had to do, I realized, was take back my schedule for myself, because I wasn't really paying attention to the hours that I was spending every day and how I was spending it. I was more making excuses like, I don't have enough time to do this. I don't know how I'm going to accomplish this. Oh my gosh, I have so many responsibilities. Yeah, okay, you do. But at that point, I didn't really know how to take control of my day. So the first thing I had to do was I had to figure out how I could go to work full time and still find enough time to write my book. So the first thing I did was this. I looked at the fact that I had 24 hours in the day, right? Everyone has 24 hours in the day. And of course, we all have responsibilities that we must achieve in those 24 hours. But you have 24 hours in the day. So what I did first was I wrote out every single hour, line by line. And I wrote out what I was doing from midnight to 11:59 p.m. on those hours, each single day, each single minute. And when I started to do that, honey, I started owning and taking control of my life. Because remember, this is your life and you're the only one who's in control of changing it. So I figured out that the only way I was going to write was to be able to have some quiet time. Now, I live with my partner and I have a dog too. And, in order to have quiet time where it was just me by myself, I needed to wake up a lot earlier in order to achieve that. So I decided that I would wake up at 4 a.m. every single day because I would have 4 solid hours to dedicate just to me, just to writing, just to getting my life together. And so, was it easy? Definitely not. I had to wake up at 4 a.m. I could not wrap my head around it. I was waking up at 8 o'clock. So I started training myself little by little, 30 minutes every week. I would increase my alarm to an earlier hour. So let's say I started waking up at 8 a.m. That next week, I started setting my alarm for 7:30. And I stuck to setting my alarm at 7:30 every single day, waking up at that time every single day until I mastered it and didn't have to hit the snooze button anymore. Once I mastered the 7:30, I started moving to 7. And I started waking up at that time every single day until I could master it. And I did that for every half-hour increment until I could wake up at 4. Now, when I started waking up at 4 every day, did I always wake up at 4? No, honey, I didn't always wake up at 4 because it's hard. But I had a goal to write a book, and that's what kept me going. And that's all that matters. So I started waking up at 4 every day, and I would pound away at that keyboard, because as I said earlier, sometimes it's just about the habit of sitting down to do something. That's the toughest part, is getting there, is showing up every day. So after doing that for about 2 to 3 months, I realized I had finished my first book, and it's an ebook, and it's called Networking Success Through Simple Steps, and it's all of the things that I learned through having my own networking events business, and it's available on Amazon, Networking Success Through Simple Steps. You can check it out. But it was the first time I sat down to dedicate time to myself, to my own goals, and I achieved them, and it felt amazing. And then I started to think, oh, wow, what other things can I achieve? And I used that 4 a.m. time slot to create new things. So I started creating a blog, right? I started working on other writing. There's so much you can achieve once you start to carve out a habit for yourself. And sometimes carving out habits means cutting out distractions, means cutting out time that you spend unnecessarily. And that might be people, that might be watching TV, that might be on social media. Whatever that is, you have to really get clear about how you're spending your time. So this is what I want you to do for me tonight. Hope you can see this. On this piece of paper, what I've done is I've written out each hour from midnight all the way to 11 p.m. And under that, I've written out goals. Habit, I will master. The habit I will master. And under that, why I want to master this habit. You have to have a reason for why. So I want you to write out on a piece of paper from 12 midnight all the way to 11 o'clock at night, what are the things that you do with your schedule every day? I want you to write those out. Even if it means you're writing, I'm sleeping for the first 6 or 7 or 8 hours. Fine, whatever you're doing. But write out every single hour and it will be magic for you. You will see, wow, I could really cut out all this time I'm binge watching on Netflix, or I don't have to take an hour to take this phone call where I'm talking about things that, yes, are great, but it's taking up a lot of time and I have a goal right now. Whatever things you need to rule out, you have to rule out so you can accomplish your goal. Remember, this is your life, and you are the only one responsible for changing it. You can change your life because you can master your schedule. You can form habits because you're in control.
Yes. So that was about my experience with creating a habit and doing it with a purpose. And my purpose in this case was to write my first book, which is called Networking Success Through Simple Steps. And it really was truly life-changing to be able to take back control in my life in such a way that I could do something that seemed impossible. You know, something that I never expected that I could do. It was mind-boggling, the idea of writing a book. I was like, what do I have to talk about? Do people really care? And all of that is just me psyching myself. That was just me psyching myself out. And we do that to ourselves all the time with ideas, right? We say stuff like, well, who's going to really watch this? Or who's going to listen to this? Or who's going to care? People care. It's just that you're talking yourself out of something. And by doing that, you allow your doubt to take control of your life. You know? And then your life passes you by and there's all of these, I wish I could have. Damn, I should have. And it's all about A, believing in yourself. B, creating a mindset and a feeling to be able to trust and believe in your ideas and who you are and what you're good at and what you really want to do. And then taking the steps to be able to do that stuff. For me, that meant I had to wake up at 4 a.m., honey. Was it kind of crazy? Yeah, it was crazy because I was like, I like waking up early and all. I like mornings and everything, but that I had to really wrap my head around. But I did it. 30 minutes by 30 minutes a week, increasing the time to earlier and earlier, and it really worked. And now I have a book out. So, For all of you writers out there, I hear you. Because it's not an easy task, but it's more about just getting to the place. Again, it's like when I was talking in the beginning of this episode about Atomic Habits and that book, it's about how you structure the setup of your space, right? How you structure the setup of your time, how you organize your activities so that you are able to do what it is you need to do to make it happen. So first, in order to make a big change, in order to create a new habit, to form a new habit, you have to have a reason, okay? Because if you don't have a reason that is driving you, a significant, important reason that is driving you, you may lose steam. That's a reality. But if you have something that's significant in your life that you really want to accomplish, then that will push you as you work on creating this habit. Mine was writing a book and challenging myself to write a book. You know, later on in my life, a couple years later, it became writing speeches. Then it became doing live videos. But it never would have started if I hadn't done that first challenge of writing a book. And I'll link the details to the book in the description so you can check it out. But honestly, the first thing I had to do was sit with a pen and paper, not on my phone, with a real pen and paper. Make that shit real. Write it down. And I had to write hour by hour from midnight to 11 p.m. What am I doing with my time? And honey, when I did that, it really made a difference. And I was able to see how I could restructure my life and what unnecessary things I could cut out. So I challenge you to try that. I challenge you to take a piece of paper and write down midnight to 11 p.m. And for each of those hours, write down what you're doing. Are you sleeping? Are you talking on the phone? Are you at work? Are you on your phone? Are you cooking? Whatever it is, write it down. It really, truly will help you to start to restructure your life. And then write out what is the goal that you want. What is the habit you're trying to master? Right? Is it waking up at a certain time? Okay, fine. Is it going to the gym? Whatever it is, write it down. And then give yourself your why. That's the most important part, is your why. Why are you trying to form this habit, to create this new habit? Why? What are you doing it for? Because if you don't know what you're doing it for, then, you have to know your why. Get clarity first on your why. And then write that out. And I'm telling you, things in your life will start to shift for real. For real. And of course, I want you to write to me and tell me about it. Send me a pen pal letter and write to me about your experience, honey, because I want to know. We can hold each other accountable. So I always like to share books with you. One of the books I mentioned was called Atomic Habits. Check that book out, Atomic Habits. The second book I want to mention is The 4-Hour Workweek by Timothy Ferriss. The 4-Hour Workweek. It's bomb. I'm telling you, it will blow your mind. Like, he went from making $40,000, I think working like 80 hours a week, to $40,000 working 4 hours a month. 4 hours a week. And I think eventually he did work like 4 hours a month. and he got to travel and all of that. So it just gives you insight into how much is possible in your life. And the third book I want to recommend this week is a book by Malcolm Gladwell called Outliers. Outliers. And I'll put a link to these books in the description. But this is where, when I was talking about 10,000 hours to master a habit, this is where the idea comes from Malcolm Gladwell's book called Outliers. And in this book, he looks at and studies the idea of success and what that actually means and how do you master success. And it's a book that I've visited, skimmed through parts of it, but I have not fully read it, so that is on my reading list. So let me know if you all would be interested in us reading a book together. All right, how cool would that be? And having a discussion about it, I would love that. Because I do think that when you are trying to do something new, when you are trying to create something new, it's really helpful to also find your tribe, find people who have done what you want to do, right? Find encouraging people. If there's no one doing what you want to do, okay. But find people that make you feel that what you want to do is possible. That's key. I went to a workshop yesterday at New York Media Center, and one of the speakers said that where she was from, didn't see anyone doing the work that she wanted to do in starting her own business. And because she didn't see that, at first she got discouraged, but then she started to look for mentors outside of her hometown, outside of her family, outside of her network. And she chose her own mentors. And her mentors were Michelle Obama and Oprah. Yeah. If you want to change your life, look for people that inspire you. They may not be doing exactly what you're doing, but their energy, if their ideas, if their positivity inspires you, then that's someone who's in your tribe. You can create the life that you want because you can create the habits that allow you to live that life. It all starts with taking control of your time, honey. This is your life. Get out of the victim mindset. I have to, because of the programs, right? Remember what I always say, the subconscious mind, from 0 to 7, whatever you've been absorbing about who you are, sticks with you. And so you have to uninstall those programs about who you are, when you didn't have power, you felt like you were powerless as a child, when you experienced trauma. We have to let go of those stories so that we can create new ones. So we can upload into our minds new programs, new systems. So that we can create our own reality and live the life of our dreams. Live the life of your dreams, honey. So I want to know what habits you are trying to create and why. As always, I send you positive vibes, lots of love, and many blessings. Thank you so much for listening to this 5th episode. I hope you feel inspired and encouraged. Share this with your community. Share this with people who you know need to hear it. And I will see you in our pen pal letters when you write to me and in the next episode. Take care. Peace out. Bye.